You are listening to the 2 and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Uh-oh.
They're basically the Bishop Sycamore of the CFL right now, so I don't know if it's even a game worth watching.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the 2 and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Ty.
Hunters are people too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
And we are part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. I'm Travis Currah. Brazilian Ty is with me today. I got to start by saying congratulations to the Canadian women hockey team winning the World Hockey Championships, beating the Americans 3-2 in overtime. And this coming after the women's soccer team beating the U.S. soccer team at the Olympics. It's been a pretty good little while here for Canadian women in sports.
Pretty good little run. First World Championship gold since 2012, I think, for Team Canada. The States have kind of had their number, won the Olympics in 2018 too. So, kind of been getting beat up on, but it was nice to see, Marie-Philip Poulin, when they thought she didn't score, she knew right away.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, bar down. But, it's awesome to see them, finally get that monkey off their back and get another gold. It doesn't taste. It's not as sweet as beating the American women's soccer team, just because of what's happened in the Olympics prior and how much I hate that entire roster. There's not a lot of players on the American women's hockey team that I hate, if any, really. But yeah, the soccer team felt even. I think the soccer team was a bigger thing to me, and it is the Olympics, I know, but just the pettiness in my heart whenever Canada plays the Americans, it was a lot of fun.
I do love Blair Turnbull hurts her ankle during the celebration and then comes back out on a stretcher to get the gold medal.
Yeah, that's the happiest I've ever seen anybody look on a stretcher.
100%. This episode of 2 and Out is brought to you by ATB Financial. Gonna let you know about ATB Cares. If you're looking for a way to give back, ATB Cares makes it easy for all Albertans to support the causes they care about. You can donate to your favorite charity through ATB Cares, and ATB will match 20% of every dollar donated to eligible Albertan charities. To learn more and to donate, visit atbcares.com.
Join 2 and Out for CFL Fantasy and CFL Pick'em and show Currah and Ty what you got.
They are who we thought they were.
Just click cflfantasy.tsn.ca.
Enough from talking about it. There has to be consequences.
And pick'em.cfl.ca.
Let's just get right into it. Let's get right to the games here. Ottawa, 6.5-point underdogs at home against the Montreal Alouettes this Friday. 42.5 points is set at as the over-under for the total points here. It kicks off Labor Day weekend. I got to ask you, though, Ty, who would win, Bishop Sycamore or the Ottawa Red Blacks?
I want to say Ottawa just because they're grown men.
Yeah, that's probably the safe bet.
But they're basically the Bishop Sycamore of the CFL right now, so I don't know if it's even a game worth watching.
Man,
if they were to play them, like in the second half, they're going to be running straight time, right?
I can't look away from car wrecks, as bad as that is. So.
Well, Montreal opened up as 3-point favorites, and 2 days later it's 6.5.
Everybody was jumping on the 3 points.
Wow. How do you not?
Okay, for Ottawa, at practice this week, Paul LaPolice has been giving Dominic Davis more reps with the first team offense. They haven't officially announced the starting quarterback yet, so you have to wait for when the depth charts come out, because Lapo has said he's going to wait until he has to announce the starting quarterback. But we know we're going to at least start to see more of him in Ottawa's offense, and they got to do something.
It's getting to the point where he's not going to have a choice. And it has to, and I mean, it has to be, I don't want to say performance-based, because, I mean, Matt Nichols hasn't played horrible. He's played like Matt Nichols, but they're not getting wins, and something needs to change. And if that's Dom Davis, I don't see that changing, but he has to do something, or else it just looks like he's apathetic and not caring about the record. So I just don't see how he doesn't get into a game either this week or next week, or sorry, in 2 weeks after their bye. Or no, yeah, they play BC in a week. So, like, I mean, one of these two games he has to be the starter unless Matt Nichols starts Friday and goes off. But that is not happening.
Yeah, at this point, it seems pretty tough to watch what he's done thus far and think that he's going to go off for, 300 and some yards in this one. We know that Dominic Davis, he's got a rifle on him, and who knows where it's going to go. That's the biggest question, but at least they should be able to.
It's like my driver.
Are you more of a hook or a slice?
Oh, slice all day. That's why when I bought my new driver a couple weeks ago, I bought the max draw so that it won't slice as much.
Man, the few times I've been on the course, I get so much curve onto the ball. It'll start as a hook, and then in about 50 yards, become a slice.
Is it a hook, or did you just pull it? Because I think you just pulled it.
Right. Well, I don't know. The thing almost looks like a boomerang when I hit it.
It flew for 300 yards, but it only went 40 yards
yeah,
down
exactly.
the fairway. Yeah. Been there.
So we'll see who Dom Davis's preferred receivers are, because, at this point in time, I'm not against having Ryan Davis in your lineup. I mean, at least Matt Nichols is throwing to him double-digit times a game. If they're giving him carries and he's only $2,500, look, prices are crazy all over the board. You need $2,500 players.
Yep.
I don't know if the offense would run the same way if Dom Davis was in there, but Ryan Davis, he's worth having in your lineup, I think. He proved it last week.
He's getting targets. He's making catches. He's adding in a little bit on the return game, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, there is a chance there to get extra points. The only thing that really worries me is that they're not putting up huge numbers in Ottawa right now. But, I mean, the guy can get 5 or 6 catches, 80 yards maybe, and a touchdown. That totally changes the complexion of your fantasy week.
Even if he gets 11 catches for 70 yards, that's valuable.
Yeah, that's 18 points.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
not terrible.
It doesn't have to be pretty.
No, and nothing in Ottawa is right now.
Yeah, there's another fair point.
Just wait 3 weeks, and it's going to get even worse.
Okay, the Ottawa Red Blacks defense has held their own. A lot will say that it's been the bend, don't break kind of model so far from Mike Benavides.
Yeah.
They've given up a CFL high 318 passing yards per game, though. Only the one passing touchdown. Could this be the game that sets Vernon Adams Jr. on the right track?
If he starts making smarter decisions.
Yeah, because if they're bad decisions, Ottawa can take advantage of that.
100%. We talked about it last week. They've talked about it a lot during broadcast. The checkdowns are there. They're easy first downs sometimes where, 7 yards from the line of scrimmage and there's nobody within 10 yards of the guy and he's not taking it. He's looking for Eugene Lewis or BJ in double coverage. Winicke's become the second down option. It's one of those things where the ball, it's nice to try to push it down the field, but at some point you have to take what the defense gives you. And like you said, they're allowing 318 passing yards per game, only one touchdown.
Yeah.
So, I mean, once you get in that red zone, they're going to have to look for options, and maybe William Stanback's going to get some looks down there. But if there's a game where Vernon Adams has a chance to put up numbers, it's this one. The only problem is that defense can feast on turnovers, as we've seen before.
Maybe Stanback is not the receiving back that they need. Maybe they need to start getting one somehow involved in the offense. If you remember 2019, Jeremiah Johnson was still with the team, and once in a while they would get him involved in the receiving game, and he was talented at that. I'm not saying bring back Jeremiah Johnson, but if Stanback's going to be
exactly what you're saying.
I mean, if Stanback's going to be the bruiser on the ground and he can't catch, they got to figure out something else to give Vernon Adams some options that he'll trust anyway.
They got to be able to throw in different looks from that position, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Now, what are you thinking about Justin Davis? We don't know yet if he's the solid starter at running back for Ottawa, but Timothy Flanders hasn't practiced so far yet this week. Justin Davis last week, and on CFL Fantasy, he's $3,500. He had 12 carries.
He was $2,500 last week.
Oh, so look even better. But this week he's up by 1,000. He had 12 carries last week, 43 yards. He also had the 4 catches. Not a bad day. He fumbled late last week. That's not going to be good for him. But if he limits those and they keep giving him double-digit touches, $3,500, there's not much to lose there.
No, and I know it's only been one game, but he scored 9.7 in that game. Timothy Flanders in his career averages 9.8. So what's the drop off?
Yeah.
And at $3,500, it's not a bad play. The only issue that I have with it, and that I was worried about it last week too, is that they're going to be behind. So how much is the run game really going to be involved? And they still threw to him 4 times. So I mean, it's not, or he still had 4 catches. So it wasn't a terrible play at $2,500 for 9.7 points. But I mean, that Al's D line has proved that they can disrupt the game plan a little bit. So that becomes an option. Or that becomes an issue, sorry. But, I mean, Justin Davis at $3,500 is not a big loss if he, only scores you 9, 10, 11 points. It gets you something at a cheaper option because, I mean, prices haven't really changed that much. Except for, let's be honest. Brandon Banks is now affordable.
Yeah.
What a joke.
I don't know if it's going to keep trending that way or not. Montreal has been giving up 5.4 yards per carry. That's the 7th best mark in the CFL. If you're keeping track, that's not the best.
It's the 3rd worst.
yeah, there it is. 3rd worst. There you go. They're
on the podium. It's just the wrong one.
They've been giving up 9 yards a pass. That's the worst mark in the CFL. They've given up 6 completions of 30 yards or more. That is the most in the CFL. Not sure if they have to worry about those couple stats against Ottawa, though.
You're really making me feel good about my Montreal Alouettes defense pick here.
Uh-oh. Hey, I picked them too. I'm making myself second guess it.
We're nothing if not confident.
One thing to note about Ottawa at practice this week, Devontae Dedmon has been starting to see more time with the first-team offense at receiver. He's been seeing carries. He is a threat in the return game. They need more threats on offense, so getting him in receiver seems like probably a bit of a no-brainer there.
Yeah, I think at this point, any addition to that offense has the possibility to help because it can't get worse.
Montreal Alouettes could be having a rookie starter at safety on Friday night. We'll see how Ty Cranston fares going up to that moment. Marc-Antoine Decoy would be the starter, hopefully, if Cranston can't go. He was a second-round pick in 2020. I just think it's notable because we're seeing a lot of players just drafted within the last couple of years that are just able to go in. I think the Canadian talent is actually very well. They seem to be coming in CFL ready to contribute right off the bat. He's been contributing on special teams. We'll see how he does, on the defense, but there's been Canadians just ready to go right away. It's been good to see.
It kind of mirrors the NFL in a way, where a lot of guys come in and they've been playing in pro systems in college. I don't know if that is the same case with U Sport, but I mean, these guys are, playing football like in places where, it's obviously been like, you look at anybody that's played in the province of Quebec, that's just been a football powerhouse, right? Helps that Laval pays their players, but if they come in and they're ready to play, it's not like there's a 2-year period where they look like Bambi and they can barely make it through a game. They're coming in ready to play, in shape. They've played in a system where the college game isn't just ground and pound because the quarterbacks can't. These quarterbacks can throw. These guys there's 2 of them on rosters right now. They can obviously do something. So it's nice to see, and that only helps teams if you can get that Canadian talent in the draft, and especially if they can play in the first couple of years and contribute, because they're a way cheaper option for you then, which just helps build the team and get guys in other positions that you might have to pay a little more for.
Montreal might also have a new face at middle linebacker in Trey Watson, and offensive tackle Chris Schluger, maybe.
Why will they have a new offensive tackle?
It appears that Tony Washington has been dealing with a knee injury, Ty.
Oh, that's too bad.
When it comes to my fantasy team, I think now at this point of the season, you can kind of see the guys that are starting to get relied on. You kind of starting to see some consistency, some patterns here and there. BJ Cunningham has had a nice return to the fold after suffering a pretty serious injury. He's averaged 13.2 points a game in the receiving corps for the Alouettes. He's, about $6,300. Jake Winicky, he's now over $7,000, but he hasn't been below double digits, averaging 15 fantasy points a game, and he's got 10 touchdown catches in his last 55 catches. Touchdown Jake knows when to make the catches count.
Yeah, and, his average is slowly creeping up. Like you said, over 15 points a game this season. His career average is 10.2, and that's gone up every week. So, I mean, he's doing something right, and that's catching the football. 10 touchdowns his last 55 catches, that's just insane. And he's converting second downs. So, like, he's getting more targets, right, than just in the red zone, which is nice to see. And, BJ has come on, averaged 13.2 this year, averaging 10.8 in his career. These guys haven't had the best games against Ottawa. They're all in single digits, other than Quan Bray, but I mean, we don't know what's going to happen there. That being said, Ottawa's defense is either going to, like you said, bend don't break, or they could give up huge numbers. Like, it's such a crapshoot.
Yeah, we know a big game will happen for Eugene Lewis eventually. Is it this week? He's averaged 9 points a week, so far this season. It's been kind of uneven. He's been seeing a lot of double, triple coverage. Vernon Adams not really caring and throwing it anyway. We'll see if he can break through that this week.
That does not help your catch percentage.
No, not at all. Let's go to Sunday. The Saskatchewan Roughriders, 4.5-point favorites over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The over-under here set at 43. It's crazy how lopsided as of late this Labor Day series has been. The Riders 37-18 overall.
Well, I mean, they obviously need to switch venues and every year, because that's the issue.
Yeah, I know. They've actually only lost the one since 2005. So it's been quite the run on Labor Day.
It's the free space on the bingo card right now.
Which is crazy to think.
Yeah. Can't beat the Bombers in the playoffs, though.
Yeah, I know. The last time these two teams played, it was the crossbar. You don't think that Cody Fajardo was thinking about that going into Sunday?
Well, it's like, don't hit it in the water, and then where you hit it, into the freaking water. So I wouldn't, if I'm him, I'd try not to think about that. That takes away a lot of the end zone options he's going to have.
Yeah.
If he's thinking about the crossbar.
Just waking up in a cold sweat. Is it the second dose or is it the crossbar?
Or, yeah. And for me, when I wake up in a cold sweat, it's usually the DTs.
Look, I wanted to start William Powell this week. I really did. But and you can if you want. I don't know if I trust the output. I know there's going to be a week when he has like 3 touchdowns and just tears it up. And maybe this is the week. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers have given up 4 rushing touchdowns on the season. Nobody else has given up 4. They're giving up 5.6 yards a carry on the ground. I don't know. Does this look like a William Powell game? Here's the thing with him. It's one of those situations where they get close to the goal line. The Riders got a lot of rushing threats, including the quarterback, where sometimes he gets the big score instead of Powell.
Yeah, and I mean, having those options is nice for an offense. It creates a lot of confusion and matchup problems for the defense. Sucks for your fantasy team.
Yeah, exactly.
Powell averages 23.1 against the Bombers per game.
Holy man.
And we saw last week Calgary using the running backs out of the backfield to counteract that edge rush from Winnipeg, and it worked pretty well. And then it kind of slows it down and opens up a lot of other options. So I don't know if Powell has the rushing game that we're hoping for, but there is a possibility that he becomes kind of that safety valve out of the backfield there to counteract the blitz off the edge. So I mean that could get you points if he makes some catches that way and gains some yards. But it's still like it's one of those things where I'm not super confident that this is the game that he has where it's, a 20-point output. He
did have double-digit carries in every game so far this season. 10 of them against Ottawa. Probably. 20 yards. So Ottawa was able to shut him down. He did add 4 catches that day. Winnipeg, you don't know what's going to happen with their rushing defense because Toronto was able to run all over them. Couple 100-yard games in a row. And we know that this game, it's going to be a battle. And it might just be a battle in the trenches on both sides of the ball. It's going to be a really fun one to watch. Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, 2 of the top teams in the league.
Well, and I think we're seeing the effect of losing Drake Nevis.
Right.
Because teams can stay away from Jeffcoat and Jefferson on the run game and go up the middle now. A little easier than before.
I'm sure Richie Hall will adjust to that situation as the season goes on. I had a tweet asking about $2,500 options, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to go through some of those.
That wasn't the tweet I thought you were going to talk about. Your napkin, your mustard stained napkin is the one I was hoping you were going to talk about.
I also thought you were going to mention the one that Dwayne had said he's not going to use our stats to influence his decisions anymore, which is a very fair tweet.
I mean, if we're the ones influencing you, that's on you, bro. I just put out the numbers. I don't tell people what to do. Just
like on Reddit, you see all the time. This is not financial advice.
I'm not telling you the truth. I'm just telling you what I heard.
Yeah, the napkin. We'll get to that once we get to Edmonton here.
Oh, yeah, there might have been a roster move to talk about.
I think Braden Linnaeus, I mean, one more week of doing what he's done so far, he's probably going to earn himself a little bit higher of a salary.
Yeah, I bitch about the salaries on CFL Fantasy, and it's going to come back to bite me in the ass when Linnaeus is $5,000 next week.
Yeah. He's been averaging about 11 points a week. Every single target he's received so far this season,
Yep.
he's caught.
Yep.
He's 11 for 11, and still no Shaq Evans from the Riders. I think he's earned himself a bigger role in the Rider offense, and coming off the bye, we'll see if they'll get him involved even more against Winnipeg.
I mean, you still have Jordan Williams, Lambert, and Kyron Moore, ahead of him on the depth chart. But this guy is so sure-handed. He's caught, like you said, everything that's been thrown his way this season. I think he had one drop, but it was on a penalty, so the play didn't even count. If he keeps reducing like this, I just don't see how they don't get him more involved. With a smaller role that he has, and he's doing what he has done, I just don't see how, like, they'll have a little bit of a three-headed monster, and once Shaq Evans comes back, the opportunity at receiver are going to be even better. So it helps Fajardo, it helps the offense immensely to have these options, and if William Powell is struggling, you know that the passing game is going to be able to kind of float them through for a bit.
I'm just scrolling through the other $2,500 options pretty quickly here. For Hamilton, you got Stephen Dunbar. He had the big debut last week. Is he going to do it again?
Obviously, let's see what happens. You can't bump him up after 1 week.
There's a couple of those things where, hey, is this going to happen again, or is that a one-time deal? I put Kean Schaefer-Baker probably in that in that category for Saskatchewan. He had 4 catches for 64 yards against Ottawa. Hey, pretty good game at $2,500. You know what I'm intrigued with this week is Malik Henry for the Stampeders. They've started.
I was thinking this exact same thing.
They're starting to get him involved a little bit more in the offense, but also the return game against Edmonton.
That he could have 2 return touchdowns.
Oh, and then if you had that in your lineup, you are absolutely laughing. And then the other $2,500 option is Ryan Davis of the Ottawa Redblacks, who has been seeing the ball a lot. He had 15 points just receiving in week 4. He had a couple carries for 12 yards as well. If they keep using him the way he's been using, then maybe he'll do okay. And then once BC gets back, it seems like they've got a couple $2,500 options as well. So it's one of those things where it's a prayer into the wind. Some of these things are very, very hit or miss, but that's the game we play. You can blame Brazilian Ty if you would like, and that's the way I would prefer to go as well. Everybody needs somebody to blame.
I got nothing. I'm just so used to it now.
If you're willing to shoulder it, then that's an admirable thing to do.
I got my shoulder's so screwed up from poor posture and playing video games on my back. I don't know how much weight I can carry, but we'll see.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers have also signed Naaman Roosevelt to their receiving core. Their receiving core has had a few issues dropping balls here and there, and Roosevelt is one of those receivers that doesn't really do that.
The only issue is he doesn't do that because they're a lot of his catches are high percentage, but that also puts him in high traffic, high danger areas.
Yeah, and that's why he has taken some punishment in his career. He doesn't shy away from getting into those situations. As far as I know, he'll be eligible to play on Sunday, but I don't think he'll be playing. If he makes his debut, it will be the Banjo Bowl. So there's probably another week of the receiving core we've seen from Winnipeg so far. Kelvin McKnight here and there, Rashid Bailey, Kenny Lawler, Darvin Adams, and Kenny Lawler has been leading the CFL in targets this year. Maybe he's going to be commanding Brandon Banks, $14,000 salaries in the near future.
How dare you? Don't give them any ideas.
He's been one of the most consistent guys so far this season.
Yeah, averaging 10.7 in his career, like you said, 11.1 this year, 11.7 against the Riders. We've seen this Riders pass defense have some issues already this season, so there is a chance that Lawler could put up some pretty big numbers this week.
Hey, they gave up a 100-yard performance to an Ottawa receiver. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Winnipeg could have one. What is Andrew Harris's historical performance against the Riders?
11.6 per game. And then you look at what he's done against Edmonton, and it's like, wow. I mean, it feels like he could do that against any team. But
yeah, I know. He does well against Edmonton for some reason. At this point in the season, the Riders have the best rushing defense in the league. They've only given up 141 yards on the ground.
Total?
Yes, total.
That's a lie.
That is through 3 games. 47 yards a game is what they have averaged so far. Let's see if Winnipeg is going to be able to up that average at all. I think it'll be a fun game at Mosaic
Bishop
Stadium.
Sycamore 3 times?
Let's go to Labor Day Monday. The Ticats, 2.5-point favorites over the Toronto Argonauts. The over-under is at 44 right now. It is the 49th Labor Day matchup between these two teams. The Ticats lead the series 35-13-1.
Oh my God!
They haven't lost a Labor Day matchup since 2012. How long is the leash for Dane Evans? Now I'm just guessing that Dane is going to be starting.
I think he's off the leash. I think he's going to be able to run with it.
I think if the Ticats falter at all, then they'll probably switch right back to Mazzoli. I think that's what happens here.
Is he healthy?
Well, I think now he probably is. Who knows?
Yeah. We'll see.
Hey, Matt Dunnigan says if you're healthy enough to dress, you're healthy enough to play.
You're healthy enough to play.
Mazzoli dressed last week, so I'm guessing he'll be dressing on Monday.
Are you hurt or injured? Because there's a difference.
I guess
You're just hurt.
Right.
Rub some dirt on it.
I'm wondering if this is the game where the offensive output really happens here. Both teams have given up 5 passing touchdowns on the season. That is 2 of the, I guess, worst marks so far in the CFL. Maybe Dane Evans keeps it going. The Ticats offense looked completely different, just more energetic, more confident with him playing. And I don't know if that was desperation or what it was, but they did look different against Montreal. Dane Evans' numbers, they weren't the best. He didn't have an interception. He had 2 touchdowns. That is something that Mazzoli could do, but it's just that it factor that you just can't really measure.
The intangibles.
Well, and also he had Stephen Dunbar, so Mazzoli never did.
I mean, that helps. And it's almost, and they almost committed to the run.
Almost. Will they do it again?
I hope so. I got $6,075 saying that they will. So
Winnipeg could not run against Toronto. I know that Brady Oliveira was the running back instead of Andrew Harris, but Oliveira had 100 yards in week 1. He only had a combined 57 yards in the 2 games against Toronto. I would love to see Sean Thomas Erlington do it again We'll see. To me, it's a roll of the dice with the Ticats running game these days. But I think,
and that Argos front seven is nothing to shake a stick at.
Yeah, that's part of the issue.
Yeah,
I mean, they've got the linebacking core and the defensive line to really shut you down. I looked at Brandon Banks' stats from the last 3 Labor Days, Ty. 24 catches, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's nowhere near that so far this season. Is he going to explode here on Labor Day?
Nope. I have zero faith in it right now. He had 5 yards last week.
Yeah, 5
and this is a totally different Argos team than we've seen in the past. So I just... Until he gets out of his own way, it feels like, I don't think we're going to see much. But his price did drop. He's only like $13,000 and some now, so he's almost affordable.
Well, Stephen Dunbar it is. See,
yeah, that sounds fair.
With that Ticats offense, I don't know who's going to be the main guy each week, and I don't know if I'm willing to risk it.
That's been the problem for the last couple of years. It's like, who do you pick? Because they've been able to spread the ball out, whether it was Ackland, Tucker, Banks, like Addison. Like, I mean, any one of those guys could have 110 yards and a touchdown, right? So it turned into a real crapshoot. And then, Brandon Banks goes on that run of 7 straight or whatever of 100-yard games, but at $14,000, it's hard to get him in the lineup. So you had to look other places. But any one of these guys, any week could put up the numbers. It's just you got to pick the right one at the right time.
And it is Labor Day. There could always be that unlikely hero showing up at the donut box.
Somebody's getting kicked out of this game.
Well, these two teams are looking more fired up than they ever have been. The Argos are the only team in the East Division with 2 wins. They have not played since August 21st. Is it the rust or rest question? I think the Argos are going to be really well prepared going into this game on Monday.
I think so. They know what's at stake here. They don't want to let the Ticats back in. There's a chance to not necessarily bury them, but to make it so it's way harder to catch the Argos in the standings. It's not a must win by any means, but if you're Toronto, you gotta stack up all the wins you can. If you're in first place, there's no such thing as too many. So this is a game where they've got to come out, and they've got to make sure that they're rested and not rusty, because if they allow Hamilton to stick around, it's just going to create problems later in the season, because we know Hamilton at some point is going to turn things around, and that might have been last week, where the offense starts to get going and they start winning football games, and the Argos have to do something to stop that and not let them get on a run here so they can stay in first.
The long rest seems to have at least benefited Devaris Daniels, who took a big hit from Brandon Alexander in their last game against Winnipeg, and it did seem like he had that chemistry with Nick Arbuckle, kind of carrying over. Devaris Daniels, I know, spent 2019 with Edmonton, but it seemed like these two guys were very familiar with each other, and Arbuckle was enjoying having former Stampeder receivers to throw to. Eric Rogers, Devaris Daniels seem like pretty good bets if you do want to run with an Argo receiver against the Ticats.
Yeah, other than who's ever getting covered by Frankie Williams, because he kind of, I don't want to say he's come out of nowhere, but he's become quite the corner. We just talk about him mainly in the return game. But I mean, when you have Daniels, Rogers, Ricky Collins Jr. as your top 3 receivers right now on the depth chart, that's not a bad embarrassment of riches to have.
Here's the deal. The Ticats are only giving up 209 yards a game through the air. Yes, they have given up the 5 passing touchdowns, but the Ticats are kind of bleeding when it comes to the ground game on defense. They were able to limit William Stanback last week. He could not get a single thing going. But the Ticats...
That was almost like the Ted Laurent show.
Yeah, and maybe that continues this week. The Ticats, 128 yards a game given up on the ground, and the Argos were able to run with success against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. 1 week was John White. The next week was DJ Foster. He's $3,500. If you're looking for a cheap option, maybe the Argos get him going against. It was only a CFL debut a couple weeks ago. Can he do it again on Labor Day? Maybe. That's all I'm saying, Ty.
The question is he going to get the touches?
Yeah, exactly. Because White had the double digits the week before. DJ ended up getting the double digits that week and took advantage of them with the 100-yard game. Can he do it in Hamilton? I don't know. Those Labor Day games can get away from you in a hurry.
Oh, yeah.
That crowd fired up, and if they get an early lead against Toronto, then the game plan is just out the window, and you're just basically trying to survive.
Yeah, you just don't want to get blown out at that point.
Yep.
You'd want to get out of there without getting people injured, without getting people suspended, and move on to the next week. Like that, at some point, it just becomes self-preservation.
Yeah, let's go to the next game here, the second part of the Labor Day doubleheader. The Calgary Stampeders, 6-point favorites over the Edmonton Elks. The over-under is at 42.5. Edmonton's last win on Labor Day was 2011, but the Labor Day series is actually quite tight here. The Stamps have the edge, 28, 25, and 1. Can Jake Maier do it again? 300 yards in each game so far in his young CFL career. Yes, there's only been two. The Elks' passing defense through 3 games, number 1 in the league, 136.7 yards they've averaged. Of course, the first one was 71 yards against Matt Nichols, so that skews things a lot. But the fact that Maier put up 300 yards against Winnipeg, he can do the same thing at home against Edmonton.
I think he can do that against Aaron Grimes.
Just throw his way every play.
Yeah. And if you overthrow it, Grimes is going to think that he's just the best corner in the league, which he is not.
There's really been a connection here between Jake Maier and Josh Huff. That's something I'm betting on this week. 11 catches for 220 yards over the past couple games for Huff. He's still costing just over $5,000. That's probably going to be rising in the next little while.
Which, I mean, hop on it while you can, because at some point it's going to be $8,000-9,000 if this continues, and it's going to be really hard to squeeze them in.
As far as the Elks go, I actually have faith in their defense here. I'm not sure if it's an area that I really want to exploit so far. Like maybe the Ottawa game skews things a little bit here and there, but they've got a solid unit on defense. They proved it against BC when Kwaku Boateng goes down, and they're still able to get to Michael Riley and shut everything down with that offense. Again, Labor Day is one of those things where you can go into McMahon Stadium and you don't know what's going to happen here. The Stamps have really committed to the running game with Kadeem Carey. Can he get it going against the Elks? Not sure if this is the week for a big game from him.
Yeah, that's a tough hill to climb with that defensive line that they have. Like we saw, Boateng doesn't play, and they're able to just kind of plug and play on that defensive line. It's just Carey, if he can get in the open field, I think, like if he's able to get around the edge, if they're able to make him a hole through the middle, I see him making plays, but it comes with high risk because that defensive front in Edmonton is able to shut down the run, and Carey's not the biggest guy. So it's not like he's Andrew Harris where he's going to power. He's not a power runner, right? So I just it's a tough matchup for Carey. That being said, we've seen what he's done in this league. It's been 2 seasons now. He's averaging 10.4 against Edmonton. Not terrible, but if you're going to pay that much for him, you expect a little more.
But again, we've seen stranger things. If you had...
I haven't. I've never watched that show.
I haven't either.
Okay.
Because if you had a quarterback and their second career start setting the franchise record for the most consecutive completions, all the power to you. And all that being said, I am seeing now that Bo Levi Mitchell has been taken off the 6-game injured list. He's eligible to practice. Mm-hmm. Will he play on Monday? I'm not sure. Their first practice for Labor Day is today. You're going to have to look at those practice reports and look at the depth chart. And this could be gamesmanship leading into the Labor Day Classic with their provincial rival. And as far as Edmonton, just north on the QE2 goes, that Elks situation just continues to be a circus off the field, doesn't it, Ty?
Yep. And it's getting old really fast. And I can only imagine how Elks fans feel if I feel this way.
Starting left guard Jacob Ruby has been released by the team. They're calling it a breach of COVID-19 protocols. Dave Naylor ends up sending out a tweet that saying that Ruby had told the team over and over again that he had been vaccinated. Well, the team asks for proof. Well, he's got no proof.
How are you waiting till this point in the season to do that?
I think that's a big question, Ty.
Don't get me wrong, Ruby's just as much at fault for being a jerk and lying, but there are ways to fact check that. And, with the league protocols that they have in place and with the 85% and the game checks and everything, there's got to be a paper trail at some point, doesn't there? There's got to be proof. There's got to be, records of this. And they both sides share fault here. I'm not going to say that, the Elks are completely innocent and the victim here, because they're not. But it's a bad look.
The early rumor was that he had forged the document and gave the Elks for that. I'm sorry, I got to laugh about that. Naylor did retract that. Who knows what's actually true? Because Justin Dunk said Trevor Harris tested positive for COVID-19, 10 minutes later retracting that. So I don't know. Something's going on where information is coming out of Edmonton. Mm-hmm. It's all fuzzy. It's getting retracted. I don't know what's going on there. But as a fan, it's got to be tiring. It's been... this Edmonton franchise has been near the top of the CFL for so many years. But as of late, it's just been dumb story after dumb story after dumb story.
You hire a coach, he quits. Granted, with the lost season, I can't really blame him. But, he was going to get paid, maybe, a little bit. But, so he leaves. They have, this, sorry, they have a breakout. The whole, I don't want, the name thing started it all, and people started getting pissed before they even stepped on the field. And, it just kind of snowballed from there, and everything just kind of jumped on it. It just consumed it, and now it's every week it seems like there's a new story coming out of Edmonton. It's nothing to do with on the field. And, it's tiring if you're an Elks fan. I feel for them. I really do, because it sucks. How we dealt with this with the Riders, with guys, going to the Pat and getting in some trouble every other day, it seemed. So I get it. But I don't know if it's a leadership problem, whether it's front office or in the locker room, or if the players just don't care, or if management and the coaching staff just don't care. It's something's off, and that needs to be fixed in a hurry.
I think it's clearly got to be a leadership issue in Edmonton.
Yeah.
I mean, and not just on the field, because the Dwayne Mandrusiak thing, like, that was just such a
that was the start of it. Forget the name. That was the start of it. That made I get what they were doing, because they weren't making, like, they had no money coming in, but they don't need to fire him. Lay him off, and you can bring him back.
Yeah.
Like, the way they went about that did not look good, and I think that's what started it all. I forgot about that.
It just doesn't. It doesn't stop. It's like the next dumb story. Of course, it's going to come out of Edmonton. You know.
Mm-hmm. And for once, it's not the Oilers.
Yeah. Here's another thing. Like, just like the Argos, the Elks have been off for a long time. Obviously, they haven't been able to gather and be at the facility. So I don't know if the time off really benefits them.
No, I don't think it does. And with the amount of guys they had with positive tests, how are they going to be affected? Because they weren't able to do anything unless they had a gym at home.
Walking into the Labor Day Classic for the Edmonton Elks, this does not seem like a good situation, man.
No.
Maybe they're not going to get crushed, but I think the only player I am considering this week, and I know the Stampeders...
Probably the same one I am.
They've shown some holes here and there in the defense. 100 yards a game given up on the ground. They've given up 300 yards in the air. Actually, both of those numbers even. 100 and 300 so far this season. But it's James Wilder Jr. for the Edmonton Elks. I don't know. You don't know who Harris is going to throw to week in, week out, or if he's going to be able to be consistent and not turn the ball over. But James Wilder Jr. has been the one sure thing in that offense so far this year.
And leading the league in rushing, and he's able to catch the ball in the backfield. It's a no-brainer if you're going to look at that Elks offense and look for a player to pick from them. With the receiver options being Darrell Walker, Greg Ellingson, Armani Edwards, when he's healthy, Mike Jones, Schneid, Ross, then you have Tavon Smith. There's just so many options at the receiver position that it just feels like the running back position is the one constant that you can rely on. And he's obviously proven it this year. He's leading the league in rushing, so it's an easy pick.
Yeah, he has been a monster so far, and thus far he doesn't have a touchdown. The touchdowns will come.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, and
hopefully this week.
When they do, it'll be a big game for James Wilder Jr. All right, Ty, what's your lineup looking like at this point in the week?
Why do you say it like that? You make it sound like I'm going to tinker.
Well, last week you did tinker because there were some injuries that popped up. It was completely different than what you revealed, so I had to add that caveat.
Jake Mayer, James Wilder Jr., Sean Thomas Erlington, pairing up Josh Huff with Mayer, Rashid Bailey, Braden Lenius, obviously at $2,500. It's a no-brainer right now, and the Montreal defense.
All right, I'm at quarterback. I'm going Dane Evans. Justin Davis at running back for the Red Blacks, James Wilder Jr., B.J. Cunningham, Josh Huff, Braden Lenius. So we've got a lot of crossover because I got the Als defense as well.
We have 4 of 7 spots.
Great go.
Great minds.
That's what it looks like going into Labor Day. The Canadian Football Podcast Network Fantasy Challenge. I got off the Schneid last week. I'm now
That's
1
such a great
3.
word.
It is. I think it needs to be used more.
I think we have to try to get it in once a week.
I'm taking on Superman Fike from the Turf District podcast. Yes, I called them that on purpose, and I will continue to call them that on purpose. Who are you picking to win the games?
Alouettes, Riders, Argos, Stamps.
Argos.
Yeah. I think the Argos sweep.
Whoa. I'm just letting that sink in. If the Argos sweep, that's home playoff. That's bye week in the first round, man.
If the Argos sweep, they're winning the Grey Cup.
Whoa. There it is. Put your money down.
And then they'll blow it all up next year, and they'll finish dead last.
Put your money down in your futures bet.
They're like the Florida Marlins. Yeah.
I'm going to Alouettes and the home teams for Labor Day, and then I'm telling you, I'll probably just switch it for next week.
Oh yeah, next week they only have one game that's not the same. So
yeah. This episode of Two and Out is brought to you by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider in Alberta. They offer internet, electricity, and natural gas with low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. In Alberta, the beauty is you get to choose who to buy your internet, electricity, and natural gas from. So if you choose Park Power, you're choosing a positive local business. Plus, Park Power shares its profits with local not-for-profits that are working to make a difference for their communities. Shopping local is very important to Park Power's owner, Chris Kozowski, and we love local here at the Alberta Podcast Network, so it's a great fit. You can learn more at parkpower.ca. I'm Travis Currah with Brazilian Ty. We made it through this week, Ty, without you just trashing every other podcaster or broadcaster under the sun.
I did it till 1. Unless you want me to start on David Sanchez, because I can go there.
Rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. We'll talk to you Tuesday. Have a good Labor Day weekend.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.